The stars had always called to humanity, but on that fateful night at the Arecibo Observatory, they finally answered back. Dr. Sarah Chen stood frozen at her workstation, her coffee growing cold beside her as she stared at the repeating pattern on her screen. After 15 years of searching for extraterrestrial signals, she had found something that couldn't be explained by natural phenomena. The signal was elegant in its simplicity, a series of prime numbers, followed by what appeared to be mathematical constants that no human civilization had discovered. It was beautiful, deliberate, and absolutely terrifying in its implications. Humanity was not alone, and whatever was out there wanted us to know they were watching. Within hours, every major observatory on Earth confirmed the signal. The Meridians, as they called themselves, presented themselves as an advanced civilization interested in peaceful contact with humanity. Their messages spoke of cultural exchange, technological advancement, and a galactic community waiting to embrace Earth with open arms. Dr. Chen should have been ecstatic. This was everything she had dreamed of since she first pointed a telescope at the stars as a child. But something felt wrong. The linguistic patterns in the Meridian's messages contained subtle contradictions that her team's eye analysis kept flagging. Their questions about Earth's defensive capabilities seemed too specific, their interest in our population centers too focused. At first, only a handful of people shared her concerns. Admiral James Rodriguez from the newly formed Space Force was one of them. In naval history, he told her during a classified briefing, when an advanced civilization showed too much interest in a primitive one's defenses, it never ended well for the primitive civilization. The truth came 3 months after first contact. A junior analyst at the European Space Agency discovered an encrypted signal buried beneath the Meridian's official communications. It took weeks to decrypt, but when they did, Dr. Chen's worst fears were confirmed. The Meridians weren't interested in cultural exchange. They were conducting a military reconnaissance of Earth. Their reports described humanity as surprisingly advanced for their development stage, but easily subjugated with minimal casualties. They discussed optimal invasion vectors and cataloged Earth's resources with clinical precision. Most chilling was their timeline. They planned to begin their integration of Earth within 5 years. What the Meridians didn't know was that humanity had already begun preparing for this possibility. Even as world leaders smiled for the cameras and talked about peaceful cooperation with their new alien friends, underground facilities around the globe were spinning up. Project Phoenix, they called it, humanity's secret response to an existential threat. Dr. Chen found herself at the heart of it all. Her expertise in xenolinguistics made her essential to understanding not just what the Meridians were saying, but how they thought. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours, she explained to the UN Security Council, but their thinking is rigid, hierarchical. They expect us to behave like every other civilization they've encountered, either to welcome them as saviors or to fight them conventionally and lose. But humanity had no intention of following the Meridian script. In hidden facilities beneath the Antarctic ice, in hardened bunkers deep in the Rockies, and in secret laboratories beneath the Sahara, human scientists worked to turn our greatest weakness, our technological inferiority, into our greatest strength. The Meridians' arrogance would be their undoing. They transmitted their messages using quantum entanglement technology, believing that humanity couldn't possibly understand, let alone intercept, such advanced communications. They never imagined that Dr. Chen and her team would not only crack their quantum encryption, but find ways to use it in ways the Meridians had never considered. As the months passed, humanity's preparation accelerated. Every Meridian transmission was analyzed, every scrap of their technology studied. They believed they were watching us, but we were learning far more about them than they realized. Their rigid hierarchy, their technological orthodoxy, their inability to conceive of warfare beyond their established doctrine. These would be the weaknesses we would exploit. 1 year after first contact, Dr. Chen stood in the control room of humanity's first quantum communications array, built in secret beneath the Atacama Desert. As she initiated the first test of their new quantum interference system, she thought about how the Meridians had dismissed humanity as primitive. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't our technology. It was our ability to adapt, to think differently, and to turn apparent weakness into strength. The game of deception would continue for now. On the surface, Earth would continue to play the role of an eager, primitive civilization grateful for the Meridians' guidance. But beneath that facade, humanity was preparing a surprise for their would-be conquerors. The Meridians thought they were the hunters, but they were about to learn what happened when they cornered a species that had spent its entire existence learning to survive against the odds. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a facility known only as the Forge, humanity's response to the Meridian threat was taking shape. Admiral Rodriguez stood at the observation deck, watching as massive robotic arms assembled what would become Earth's first quantum-enhanced battleship. The vessel didn't look like anything in humanity's naval history, or like the sleek, standardized designs they'd gleaned from Meridian communications. "It's ugly," Dr. Chen said, standing beside him. "But that's rather the point, isn't it?" The Admiral smiled. The ship's seemingly haphazard design was intentional. Every irregularity in its hull, every asymmetrical component served a purpose. The Meridians' entire military doctrine was built around predictability and uniformity. Their ships were mathematical perfection, and that was their weakness. Project Phoenix had started as a desperate gamble. How do you fight an enemy centuries ahead of you technologically? The answer, it turned out, was to stop trying to catch up and instead leap in an entirely different direction. While the Meridians had mastered quantum technology through careful, methodical advancement, humanity approached it like everything else, by breaking all the rules. Dr. Chen's team had discovered that the Meridian's quantum communications network had an unexpected vulnerability. Their rigid adherence to mathematical perfection meant they'd never considered using quantum entanglement in ways that were, by their standards, imperfect. Human scientists, unburdened by centuries of quantum orthodoxy, found they could create messy quantum fields that the Meridian systems couldn't properly process. The battleship taking shape below them, dubbed Phoenix, was humanity's first implementation of this discovery. Its quantum irregular hull could generate fields that would make Meridian targeting systems worse than useless. They would actively mislead their users. But that was just the beginning. "Show me the heart," Rodriguez requested, and a holographic display sprang to life between them. At the center of the Phoenix was its most revolutionary component, a quantum core that deliberately operated in ways the Meridians had dismissed as impossible. Their quantum technology sought perfect entanglement. The Phoenix's core thrived on partial and imperfect entanglement states, turning quantum uncertainty itself into a weapon. Around the world, other facilities were preparing their own pieces of humanity's response. In Kazakhstan, they were manufacturing quantum irregular torpedoes that could change their probability states mid-flight. Under the Australian outback, they were developing communication systems that could ride the noise in quantum fields that Meridian systems filtered out as useless. But the Phoenix was more than just a warship. It was humanity's statement to the galaxy. "We will not fight the way you expect us to fight. We will not follow your rules of warfare. We will turn your own assumptions against you." The project hadn't been without its costs. Keeping it hidden from the Meridians required a global effort unlike anything in human history. Every nation contributed resources. Every major technology company devoted hidden portions of their computing power to the quantum simulations needed to make it work. The International Space Station had been converted into a massive decoy, running very visible, but ultimately meaningless experiments to keep Meridian attention focused upward while the real work happened below the waves. Dr. Chen's linguistic team had been crucial in maintaining the deception. They crafted responses to Meridian messages that reinforced their expectations of how a primitive species should behave. Every communication was carefully designed to make Earth appear technologically ambitious, but hopelessly naive. "The quantum core test is starting," one of the technicians announced. Everyone on the observation deck fell silent as energy readings began to climb. This was the moment of truth. Either their understanding of quantum irregularity was correct, or they were about to learn a very expensive lesson in humility. The core spun up, its deliberate imperfections generating patterns that would have horrified Meridian engineers. But that was exactly what they wanted. The readings stabilized exactly where their calculations had predicted, not despite the imperfections, but because of them. "It works," Dr. Chen whispered, staring at the readings. "It actually works." Admiral Rodriguez nodded slowly. "Now we just have to finish building the rest of it before the Meridians decide to drop their friendly facade." A warning light flashed on one of the monitoring stations. Speaking of which, the technician said, "We're detecting increased quantum activity in the outer solar system. The Meridians are stepping up their surveillance." "Let them watch," Rodriguez replied. "They'll see exactly what we want them to see." Above them, carefully positioned satellites continued broadcasting evidence of a civilization struggling to understand basic quantum mechanics. Below, humanity's greatest engineering achievement continued taking shape, a testament to humanity's greatest strength: our ability to think differently, to embrace chaos, and turn it into an advantage. The Meridians thought they were watching a primitive species fumble toward enlightenment. Soon, they would learn that humanity's apparent primitive nature was the greatest deception of all. The Meridian ultimatum came on a quiet Tuesday morning. Their transmission overrode every broadcast frequency on Earth simultaneously, a show of force designed to demonstrate their technological superiority. Dr. Chen watched from the UN General Assembly as the holographic figure of High Commander Vexthor materialized above the podium, his crystalline form towering over the assembled representatives of humanity. "People of Earth," the translation matrix rendered his words in every human language simultaneously. "The time has come to formalize your place in the Meridian sphere of enlightened species." His tone carried what humans had learned to recognize as their version of condescending benevolence. "Your civilization has shown admirable progress under our guidance, but remains dangerously unstable. For your own protection and development, we will now assume direct administrative control of your world." The assembled diplomats played their roles perfectly, expressing shock and outrage that their mentors would betray them so. It was theater for the Meridians' benefit, every reaction carefully choreographed by Dr. Chen's team to reinforce the aliens' assumptions about human predictability. Deep beneath the Pacific, Admiral Rodriguez watched the transmission from the Phoenix's newly completed bridge. "Right on schedule," he muttered, checking the countdown display. The massive vessel's quantum core hummed with controlled irregularity, its systems ready but dormant. They had expected this moment, planned for it, but the stakes remained astronomical. The Meridian commander continued his speech, laying out their terms with mathematical precision. Earth would be divided into administrative sectors. Human technology would be upgraded under Meridian supervision. Population centers would be optimized. Resources would be efficiently allocated. It was conquest dressed up as charity. "You have 6 of your Earth hours to formally submit to Meridian authority," Vexthor concluded, "after which we will be forced to demonstrate the consequences of non-compliance." On cue, their sensors detected massive energy signatures emerging from behind Mars, the Meridian invasion fleet decloaking in a dramatic display of power. Dr. Chen activated her quantum-encrypted link to the Phoenix. "How many ships?" "Exactly as many as their tactical doctrine dictates for a Class 3 civilization," Rodriguez replied. 216 combat vessels arranged in their standard geometric formation. They're nothing if not predictable. That predictability had been humanity's greatest asset in preparing for this moment. The Meridians didn't just follow their military doctrine. They were incapable of conceiving warfare in any other way. Their ships would be arranged in perfect mathematical patterns, their attack sequences would follow established algorithms, and their responses to resistance were cataloged in detail in their own tactical databases. "Begin broadcast of the surrender negotiations," Chen instructed the UN staff. Right on cue, The world's governments began their carefully scripted performance, arguing amongst themselves, demanding more time, showing exactly the kind of disorganized panic the Meridians would expect from a primitive civilization facing its technological superiors. But beneath the oceans, in hidden bases, and in hardened bunkers around the world, humanity's real response was taking shape. The Phoenix's crew ran final systems checks. Quantum irregular torpedo batteries powered up. Defense platforms disguised as communication satellites orientated themselves minutely. 5 hours into the ultimatum, the UN Secretary-General requested an audience with Commander Vexthor to discuss terms of surrender. The Meridian commander's crystalline face showed what passed for satisfaction in their species. Everything was proceeding according to their tactical projections. The quantum core is at full capacity, the Phoenix's engineering chief reported. All systems nominal, or as nominal as systems designed to be irregular can be. Rodriguez nodded. Begin pre-launch sequence. Let's show them how humanity responds to ultimatums. In New York, Dr. Chen watched the final minutes of the countdown tick away. The Meridians had given humanity 6 hours to surrender, confident in their superior technology and convinced of our inability to resist. They had spent years studying Earth, cataloging our weaknesses, and planning our subjugation. But they had never bothered to ask themselves a crucial question. What if humanity's apparent technological inferiority wasn't a weakness? What if our seemingly primitive understanding of quantum mechanics wasn't a limitation, but a carefully crafted deception? What if everything they thought they knew about Earth was exactly what we wanted them to think? As the final minutes of the ultimatum ticked away, Chen allowed herself a small smile. The Meridians were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't our technology. It was our ability to make our enemies underestimate us. The Pacific Ocean erupted. Water cascaded off the Phoenix's irregular hull as it broke the surface, its quantum-distorted form sending ripples through both space and the Meridian's sensor networks. The massive vessel rose on columns of quantum-disrupted water, its very existence a contradiction of everything the Meridians believed possible. In the Meridian command ship, alerts blared as their sensors tried and failed to make sense of what they were seeing. Their quantum scanning systems, designed to detect perfect patterns, were being thrown into chaos by the Phoenix's deliberately irregular construction. Where their sensors expected mathematical precision, they found calculated imperfection. What is this aberration? Vexthor demanded, his crystalline form flickering with agitation. The Phoenix didn't match any known ship classification in their vast database. Its hull geometry violated their fundamental principles of quantum engineering. By their understanding of physics, it shouldn't even be able to maintain structural integrity. Admiral Rodriguez stood on the Phoenix's bridge, watching as the Meridian fleet's perfect formation began to waver. "Send the message," he ordered. Dr. Chen's voice carried across all frequencies, translated into the Meridian's own language. "You studied our history, but you didn't understand it. Humanity didn't survive and thrive by following rules. We survived by breaking them, by thinking differently, by turning weakness into strength." The Phoenix's quantum core pulsed, sending waves of irregular energy washing over the Meridian fleet. Their shields, calibrated to defend against conventional quantum attacks, tried to compensate for patterns that deliberately defied prediction. Warning signals cascaded through their network as ship after ship reported sensor failures. "This is impossible," one of Vexthor's subordinates reported. "Their quantum technology is wrong. It violates all established principles." "That's the point," Rodriguez muttered, watching the chaos spread through the enemy fleet. The Phoenix began to move, its movements as unpredictable as its construction. Where Meridian ships followed precise vectors, the Phoenix seemed to flow through space like water, its trajectory defying their targeting algorithms. The first shots were fired by the Meridians, their energy weapons lancing out in mathematically perfect patterns. But the Phoenix's quantum irregular hull scattered their beams in ways their targeting systems couldn't predict. Return fire came in the form of quantum torpedoes that existed in multiple probability states simultaneously, making them impossible to intercept with conventional defenses. Their fleet formation is destabilizing, Phoenix's tactical officer reported. Their command and control network can't handle the quantum interference we're generating. The Meridian fleet's perfect geometric formation had devolved into chaos. Their rigid tactical doctrine had no protocols for dealing with an enemy that broke the fundamental rules of quantum combat. Ships collided as their navigation systems failed, their automated responses thrown into confusion by the Phoenix's impossible existence. Dr. Chen watched from the UN as the Meridian commander's hologram flickered with increasing distress. "This is not warfare," Vex Thor protested. "This is an abomination against the natural order of combat." "No," Chen replied. "This is humanity showing you why we survived every challenge our world threw at us. We don't follow the natural order. We adapt it, reshape it, turn it to our advantage." The Phoenix's quantum core reached full power, its deliberate imperfections generating cascading failures throughout the Meridian fleet's neural network. Ships began to power down as their quantum systems crashed, unable to process the contradictory data flooding their sensors. "You thought our primitive understanding of quantum mechanics made us vulnerable," Rodriguez broadcast to the failing Meridian fleet. "The truth is, our primitive approach let us see possibilities your rigid doctrine blinded you to. We didn't try to match your perfection. We weaponized imperfection itself." Vex Thor's hologram stabilized long enough for one final transmission. "You cannot fight this way. This violates every principle of civilized combat." "That," Chen replied, "is exactly why we're winning." The battle that reshaped galactic history lasted less than an hour. The mighty Meridian fleet, terror of 1,000 worlds, was reduced to drifting hulks by weapons that violated their fundamental understanding of physics. But humanity's victory brought with it an unexpected consequence: attention from the wider galaxy. Quantum ripples from the battle had propagated through the Meridian's vast communication network, carrying news of their defeat to every corner of their empire. The impossible had happened. A primitive species had not only resisted Meridian dominance, but had done so by breaking the very rules that underpinned their civilization. 3 days after the battle, as humanity began the process of securing the disabled Meridian vessels, the first diplomatic contacts arrived. Not from the Meridian Empire, but from other species who had long chafed under their technological orthodoxy. Representatives from a dozen civilizations appeared in Earth's orbit, their ships maintaining a respectful distance from the Phoenix. Admiral Rodriguez stood in the UN General Assembly alongside Dr. Chen as the first of these new aliens addressed humanity. The Arcanian speaker, a being of pure energy contained within an environmental suit, spoke with what could only be described as awe. For 10,000 years, the Meridians convinced the galaxy that their way was the only way. The translator rendered their words. Their mathematical perfection, their rigid doctrine, their unshakable certainty in the proper order of things became the foundation of galactic civilization. And in a single day, humanity proved them wrong. The Phoenix had become more than just a weapon. It was a symbol. Its very existence demonstrated that there were other paths to advanced technology, other ways of thinking about the fundamental forces of the universe. Humanity's primitive approach to quantum mechanics had revealed possibilities that centuries of Meridian orthodoxy had obscured. "We've received word from the Meridian High Council," Dr. Chen announced to the Assembly. "They're suing for peace, not just with Earth, but with all their client worlds. Their defeat here has sparked a revolution in thought throughout their empire." The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just defended Earth. They had inadvertently broken the technological and philosophical stranglehold that had gripped the galaxy for millennia. The quantum irregularity technology that powered the Phoenix was already being studied by other civilizations, leading to breakthroughs that the Meridians had deemed impossible. But with this recognition came responsibility. "They'll be watching us now," Rodriguez noted as they left the assembly. "Every species that's ever dreamed of breaking free from Meridian doctrine will look to Earth for leadership. Not leadership, Chen corrected. Inspiration. We've shown them that there's more than one way to reach the stars. Each civilization will find its own path now. The Phoenix remained on patrol near Mars, its irregular hull a reminder that humanity's greatest strength had never been our technology, but our ability to think differently. The ship that had saved Earth had become a symbol of a new age in galactic civilization, an age where perfection was no longer the only path to progress. In the months that followed, Earth became a center of technological and philosophical revolution. Scientists from 100 worlds came to study humanity's approach to quantum mechanics, while human researchers gained access to centuries of alien knowledge. But more importantly, they came to study humanity itself, to understand the species that had dared to question the unquestionable. Dr. Chen found herself teaching xenolinguistics to alien students, helping them understand how humanity's varied languages and ways of thinking had contributed to our unique approach to problem-solving. Admiral Rodriguez led initiatives to help other species develop their own unique approaches to space warfare, free from the constraints of Meridian doctrine. The Meridians themselves underwent a transformation. Their defeat by primitive humans had forced them to confront the limitations of their rigid worldview. Some Meridian scientists, in defiance of millennia of tradition, began experimenting with quantum irregularity, finding that their own technology could be enhanced by embracing imperfection. 1 year after the battle, humanity launched its second quantum irregular vessel. Unlike the Phoenix, designed for war, this ship was built for exploration. Its irregular hull contained laboratories and living quarters for crews from a dozen different species. Its mission was not to defend Earth, but to seek out new ways of thinking about the universe. As Dr. Chen watched the new ship rise from the Pacific on quantum-distorted waves, she reflected on how far humanity had come. We had faced extinction and emerged not just survivors, but revolutionaries. Our greatest weakness, our inability to match Meridian perfection, had proved to be our greatest strength. The stars had called to humanity, and we had answered in our own unique way, not with perfection, but with innovation, not with rigid doctrine, but with adaptability, not with fear of the impossible, but with the courage to attempt it anyway. And in doing so, we had taught the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. Sometimes the best way to advance isn't to follow the rules, but to rewrite them entirely.